Thank you for attending. Well, first of all, hi everyone, and thank you for being here. We are excited to share our project on training dynamics of recurrent neural networks in a random target tasks. I'm Amaia, and I'm presenting this work alongside Zakieh and Meng-Chun with the guidance from our mentor, Alex. Our work explores how recurrent neural networks learn to control simulated musculoskeletal arm, which is basically teaching a neural net how to move like a brain would do. But as we'll show, what's happening during training, it's not what you might expect. So to understand why we choose these projects, let's take a step back and think about our motor control in the brain. The brain solves motor control through complex time-dependent computation. Meanwhile, recurrent neural networks are great match for this kind of task because they can handle sequences and memory. Therefore, muscle control with its delays and non-linearities gives us a rich and challenging environment to explore how these networks learn. So we are teaching this robot controller to move like a brain and watching how it figures things over the time. To model our motor control, we use MotorNet, a framework that lets an RNN control a simulated arm that receives sensory feedback and learn from error signals, like the motor cortex would do. Our task was a random target reaching problem. The arm had to reach the target that appear in the different location of its rails using only internal memory and sensory cues to adapt. These setups create a biologically realistic challenge that pushes the RNN to learn dynamic and context-aware strategies. During our project, we started thinking differently about what it meant for an RNN to learn. Instead of treating learning as a simple optimization, we wonder if learning might look more like a dynamical process unfolding over time. Maybe the network doesn't just get better at a single strategy, but maybe it actually shifts between different regions, like going through phases. So we form our central hypothesis, which is that RNNs, especially in motor control tasks, involves transitioning between qualitatively different internal states, not just fine-tuning. Here's how we approach the project. First, we train the MotorNet model on the random target task and save checkpoints across each epoch. Then instead of just comparing the performance, we focus on how the model evolved during the training. And finally, we use the MDS and DSA to analyze the internal dynamics and see if learning involved distinct phases or strategy shifts. So here is a quick overview of our journey that we will explain better later. We started by noticing a strange spike in loss and rule out back like curriculum learning. Even after tweaking some parameters, the pattern stays, so we shift to analyzing the network's internal dynamics. And then that's when things got interesting. And the interesting things, Zakieh will walk through what we found.
Thank you, Amaia. Here is what's unusual about our training results. The loss didn't just go down smoothly like you would expect and like we generally see in deep learning. Instead, it first decreased a bit, then strangely went up until around epoch 100, and only then started going down again and stabilized. At first, we thought this might be because of how we implemented curriculum learning in our code, but when we removed that, the same weird pattern still happened. This told us there was something more basic going on, either with how our network was built or just how learning works in a complicated control task like this one. To understand the unusual loss pattern, we systematically tested different network configurations. We explored various network sizes, regularization settings, including weight decay and learning rate schedules, to determine if we could eliminate the non-monotonic behavior or if it was fundamental to learning this task. These figures show our tests with different network sizes. Here, the 256 GNN network performed best despite some overfitting risk. For regularization, a weight decay of 10 to the minus 6 provided the best balance between training and validation performance. We also experimented with learning rate warm-up strategies, starting with a small learning rate and gradually increasing it improved stability. A 30 epoch warm-up period worked best. Again, we see that the non-monotonic loss pattern remained. And the best configuration was chosen for the network, as you see. Even though these improvements made our network perform better overall, the strange pattern in the loss still happened. This suggests that this pattern might just be a natural part of the learning, as learning such a complex task, not a problem with our setup. To figure out what was happening during training and to understand how the network's problem-solving approach changes, we used two main tools to look inside the network. First, we use multidimensional scaling, or MDS, which is a dimension reduction technique. It helps us take the complex high-dimensional data from our analysis and reduce it to a simple two-dimensional map. This way, we could actually see patterns that otherwise would be impossible to visualize. Second, we use dynamic similarity analysis, or DSA. This special technique lets us compare how the network actually processes information at different training stages. It's like comparing how the network thinks at epoch 10 versus epoch 100 and other epochs. These visualizations show how our network's internal strategy evolved throughout training. Panel A shows the first 200 epochs, where the network explores latent space in a nonlinear path. Notice the major reorganization that is happening around epoch 100, or the red star, exactly when our loss function peaked. This trajectory isn't random wandering. It represents the network transitioning between fundamentally different computational approaches. Panel B extends this to all 1,000 epochs, showing the complete learning journey. We can see that even after the loss stabilizes, the network continues exploring different solutions. And there is a notable shift around epoch 800. Panel C shows our dynamic similarity analysis, which goes beyond the geometric proximity shown in panel A and B. While those panels show where information is represented, the essay reveals how the information is processed over time. The clustering pattern indicates distinct computational regime the network discovers for controlling different aspects of the reaching task. The distance between early epochs and later epochs confirms that the final solution operates on entirely different computational principles than the initial strategy.
Okay, so before we dive into the network's internal dynamics, let's look at the outcome of the learning. At epoch 0, the network has no idea what is going on. As we can see, it outputs random muscle activation and the arm just moves aimlessly. But by epoch 99, it has learned to produce smooth targeted movements, reliably reaching the goal after the go cue. This transformation in behavior reflects something much deeper happening inside the network, and that's what we'll explore next, how the latent dynamics evolve over time to make this skill possible. This slide shows other intermediate points like epoch 200 and 600, where the arm is beginning to move in the right direction, but it still lacks precision. What's fascinating is that these visible behavioral changes reflect deeper shifts in the network's internal computation, which we'll now explore through the latent dynamics. This slide shows the network's latent activity evolved across trainings from epoch 99 through epoch 999. It's plotted a PCA projection of the GRU hidden states across 1,000 random trials, and each trajectory represents the hidden states over 100 time steps for a single trial. Early on in epoch 99, we see a disorganized high variance activity with no clear structure. reflecting an uncoordinated control. As training progresses, especially past epoch 299, the latent dynamics begin to collapse into a tighter, more stereotyped trajectories, which suggests that the network is converting on more consistent internal representation of the task. And finally, by epoch 999, the last one, the structure is both compacted and directional, indicating that the network has developed a stable, low-dimensional manifold to encode a goal-directed movement. This progressive reorganization supports our hypothesis that learning in RNNs for motor control isn't just a matter of optimizing output. It's a process of qualitatively internal restructuring. We also tested the robustness of our visualizations through a consistency analysis of our MDS projections. By comparing 18 different random initializations of the MDS algorithm, we found that while the exact 2D coordinates varied between runs, the relative distance between points remained remarkably consistent with a high correlation of 0.9. This means that although the specific positions might shift slightly with different random states, the relationships between points are preserved. This confirms that the major transitions from the computational regimes we identify reflect genuine patterns in the network's learning dynamics rather than artifacts on the dimensionality reduction process. To conclude, the non-monotonic loss pattern we observe represents necessary strategy exploration, not an optimization or failure. Our network traverses distinct computational regions during the learning rather than refining a single approach. Moreover, the losses peak around epoch 100 marks a critical transition point between different computation strategies. Training effective motor control networks require allowing for these exploratory phases, and we see intriguing parallels to human motor learning, where performance sometimes worsens before improving as new strategies are developed. Finally, for the final submission, we want to explore force field adaptation to the model and compare how both models learn, and also for the future, exploring model rehabilitation scenarios and investigating whether biological systems, so similar strategy transitions during learning would be interesting. And finally, to wrap all the presentation, this comic captures the story of our project. We trained a GRU to move a virtual arm like a human would, but the learning wasn't smooth. Just like people, the AI got worse before it got better. But it wasn't failing. It was exploring, switching strategies, and reorganizing its internal dynamics. This tells us something deeper, that intelligent control may emerge not from perfect optimization, but from structured exploration, just like the brain. So whether it's a robot, a rehab technology, or brain-inspired AI, understanding how systems learn to move brings us one step closer to making them move smarter. Thank you for listening, and we are ready for your questions.